Thank you for your interest in LPC's designation photo collection. To begin, I'd like to introduce you to the LPC staff that will be presenting tonight. I'm Tim Fry, the Director of Special Projects and Strategic Planning, and I'm joined by Wendy Jimenez, LPC's Archivist, and Dan Watts, LPC's Senior Data and GIS Analyst. And on the screen is a brief outline of tonight's webinar, where we'll begin with an introduction of the photo collection and its associated data. Wendy and Dan will go over those details. And then we'll each take turns sharing or walking through the various tools of the website that will enable you to get the most of its features. If you recall, when you signed up for the webinar, we asked which categories best describe your interest in using the collection. We'd like to share the results since interaction is limited in a webinar format. And this slide illustrates that while a third of you have a general interest in the collection, most of you will also utilize the archive to conduct property or neighborhood research, or sometimes in preparation of permit applications. And the reason we're sharing this with you is because we developed this tutorial based on these responses. We really want the tutorial to be meaningful to you and for you all to get a lot out of it. So at the end of the presentation, if we haven't covered something that could help you with your research or preparing applications, as I mentioned, there'll be time for questions. So we encourage you at any time during the presentation to enter your question or your comment into the chat, the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. And there will be time to have a conversation towards the end. So with that, I'm going to now hand the presentation over to Wendy, who's going to provide a brief introduction on for those of you that aren't familiar with the designation photo collection. So Wendy.
Thanks, Tim, and welcome everyone. So this multi-phase project was made possible in part through a grant from the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, enabling the agency to process, catalog, and number LPC's designation photo collection. The collection is now searchable and its contents are easily accessible for both the public and LPC staff alike. As part of the designation process for an individual building, historic district, interior or scenic landmark, LPC staff prepares a written description and documentation of the visual and physical condition of each building and site associated with the landmark. When LPC approves a landmark or historic district designation, the written designation report includes photographs of the property as part of the designation workflow, which serves as a baseline for future work. Since the founding of the agency, LPC has documented New York City's landmarks with a camera. Spanning over 55 years, the images in the LPC designation photo collection are an interesting mix of 35mm black and white and color film, medium and large format negatives, color slides, darkroom prints, and Polaroids. Given the technological shifts in photography, LPC transitioned from analog to digital photography in 2004. Though most of the images were taken by staff photographers working for the agency, some images have been donated and submitted by historic preservation advocacy groups. It will be regularly updated with newly digitized and cataloged images. This photo documentation provides vital information for LPC staff and the public. Specifically, the archive serves as a resource for applicants as they prepare their permit applications, which helps streamline the application review and approval process. These photos are also intended to assist those undertaking primary source research on New York City buildings with the goal of finding construction dates, architects and original owners, alterations to buildings and changes in ownership over time, the names of building residents, and historic photos, among other information. Until now, these designation photos had only been available by request on a case-by-case basis. The public would contact LPC to request access to the photo collection. Depending on demand, this request could take some time as the photo collection was largely unprocessed. The LPC designation photo collection now has a record for each designated landmark accompanied by robust metadata. Up next is my colleague Dan Watts, who will give an overview of the digital archive's enhanced data.
Thanks, Wendy, and hi, everyone. One of the most important goals of creating the archive was ensuring that detailed and multifaceted information was included with each image. This was an important goal because achieving it goes a long way towards providing the public with an efficient and transparent service for finding archived images in a wide variety of ways. To that end, each image in the digital photo archive is enhanced by information extracted from the LPC's historic building database. The historic building database, which was developed in 2017-2018, includes building level information on more than 37,500 buildings currently designated by the agency. Many of you may already be familiar with this database through the LPC's Discover NYC Landmarks web mapping application. Within the Discover application, users can locate designated historic buildings and building information through a visual map-based interface. Building data for the Historic Building Database project was drawn directly from designation reports and includes a wide variety of information such as dates of building construction, information on architects, builders, and owners, lists of building materials, information on architectural styles, information on significant building alterations, a breakdown of building uses, both at time of construction and afterwards, and in some cases, building notes highlighting notable residents, historic occurrences, famous designers, etc. As part of the planning process for the digital photo archive, LPC staff developed a technical process enabling building attribute data from the historic building database to be joined to image files as they are uploaded into the archive. As a result of this process, each image in the collection has an added richness of context and opens the way for additional search and filter functions that will allow users to search images in a variety of ways. In just a few minutes, we'll walk through the search functions and how to navigate the archive. As mentioned earlier, the archive will be regularly updated with newly digitized and cataloged images, so please continue to check back for new content. While the website does not yet fully represent the entire collection, LPC is focused on making the full collection digitally accessible. Now I'll pass it back to Tim.
Oh, Tim, you're on mute.
Thank you for reminding me. The easiest way to access the collection is through LPC's website under the Discover tab that I just showed. The first link in the Discover tab is to the Digital Photo Archive page, which is where the link is highlighted here in red. We will be sharing a way to bookmark the archive if you choose to go directly to it in the future, and not through the LPC website. But for the purposes of this exercise, we wanted to show you where it will remain on our website. So clicking on the link in the LPC website brings us to the archive landing page. Now that we've reached the collection website, you'll see the landing page has information on how to search images, as well as how to get in touch with us if you need additional help or are unable to locate an image. And that all information is all located here as a reminder. Also in the top right-hand corner is the search window, which also, if you hover over the arrow, the advanced search shows up. So once you become an expert at navigating the collection or know specifically what you're looking for, you may want to go ahead and use the search window function to start. But I also want to emphasize this evening that you're going to see some redundant features on the website. And this is on purpose. This is to allow users to search and navigate through the collection in a way that they feel most comfortable. So tonight we're going to show you just some of those options, but we encourage you to explore the collection and navigate however works best for you. So my main focus is going to be on these two buttons here right under the images of Central Park. There's a browse all function, which would dive us right into the photo collection. And then there's also, we could get into the collection by selecting this browse 4W facets button. So 4W facets stand for what, where, who, and when in the archive. So let's briefly look at those definitions. And you see they're organized here. The what are the designation photos, the image type. Where are the 5 boroughs in the city of New York. Who are the landmark types: historic district, individual, interior landmark, and scenic landmark. And then the when category is the date of the construction date of the landmark if it was known at the time of landmark designation. So any of these categories here can immediately bring you into a filtered view of the collection. So for instance, if I wanted to just dive directly into the Bronx images, I could click on the Bronx and immediately go to a filtered view of all the Bronx images. And I know that because up here at the top, it says browse all images of the Bronx. And then under the who, what, when, where on the left-hand side, you see the Bronx is the filter. To remove the Bronx filter, you would just click the Bronx again and it would remove that filter. But what we're going to do is we're going to start with the browse all function. So I'm going to go back to hit the landmarks logo. And I'm going to enter through the browse all function. And then I'll show you how the collection is arranged. So within the center of the page, you'll see thumbnails for all of the images within the collection. The center thumbnails are organized by landmark number. So it'll always start with landmark number 1, in this case, the Wyckoff House, which was designated in 1965. And then along the top right is the search window again, and hovering over the search window identifies the advanced search function, which Wendy will walk us through. And then the toolbar that runs along the top of the screen. For the purposes of this evening, we're going to use the collections tool and the share tool. On the left-hand side of the browser is an alphabetical list of all the landmarks, and below, again, the 4W facets that I just showed you and we reviewed. And Dan is going to walk us through how to use this refined view on the left-hand side as a way to further filter the collection to obtain exactly the images you're looking for. So Dan, do you want to take over?
Thanks, Tim. So within the browse all view, the refine filter is an easy way to find landmarks quickly. On the upper left side, upper left of the screen, click on the filter icon under refine to search by landmark name. First, let's search for the Empire State Building interior landmark and see what comes up. So it returns all of the images, looks like 10, associated with this interior landmark. And so if you want to clear that search, all you have to do is click back on the X next to a landmark name. And next we'll search for just the Empire State Building individual landmark designation. And once those images come up, we'll select one of them. So you'll see on the left side of the screen under media information, you'll see a list of image attributes. And at the top of that list, you'll see basic property information, including address, building identification number, block, lot, and borough. Also included at the top of that list is a link to the designation report for that designation. And if you click on it, it'll open in a new tab. So that's very handy if you want to get additional details about the designation type. So if you scroll down in the media information, you'll see additional information such as the building's architect, the dates of construction, the building materials and use, as well as any additional notes from the designation report entry. Any of these fields allow users to explore and search by attributes. So let's run through a couple examples. So scroll down to the style primary attribute and hover over it, and then move your cursor over to the right and click on search style primary. So what this is going to do is you'll see under style primary, the primary style is Art Deco. So this is going to return images from the collection that have a primary style value of Art Deco. So in this case, it's returning over 2,500 images back. But that's a lot of images, and you might want to refine it further. So what you can do next is open the 4W dropdown, and say you're just interested in Art Deco buildings in the Bronx. So you can go down to Where and click on the Bronx, and that will refine the search down to, it looks like 173 images of just designations that have that primary style of Art Deco that are located in the Bronx. If you want to start a new search, or you think you made a mistake in your previous search, all you have to do to reset the filter or start over is to click on the LPC logo on the upper left corner of the screen. So one more example. Say you're interested in the Peter Lefferts house in Prospect Park and other early Dutch buildings in Brooklyn. In the refine filter, you can search for the Lefferts house. And once that is open, you'll see 3 images associated with it. And much like the last example, if you click on an image and you go down in the attributes, and so we're looking at things that we could use to further filter, the style primary of Dutch colonial could be a good place to start. So let's click on search style primary to find buildings that have a primary style of Dutch colonial. And that returns 205 images. But then back to our original question, we were interested primarily in Dutch colonial buildings in Brooklyn. So we'll go back to the 4W dropdown and then again select Brooklyn under Where, and it filters it down to 98 images. And just a handful is at 8 or 9 designations. So again, another handy way to kind of quickly get images, drill down into the collection to quickly get results. So, and then again, to return to the home screen and reset the filter, just click on the LPC logo at the top left. And now Wendy is going to show you how to use the archive's advanced search functionality.
Thanks, Dan. So some of the search capacities within the collection at large allows a user to identify individual landmarks that are located within a historic district. This can be done by utilizing the search box functionality. So if you have the landmark number available, you can enter that specific number in the search box. Now, a question that may come up for a new user is how to locate a landmark number. There are 2 tools on the LPC website that will be extremely useful for your research needs. First, there's the Discover Landmarks map that Dan has previously mentioned, where users can click on designated sites and buildings for additional information. Another viable option is to perform a designation report search on the LPC website, which can also help you identify an LP number. For the purpose of this tutorial, we'll be using the example of the Outer Lord residence, which has a designation number of LP 2642. Once we enter that search term and click on the magnifying glass, that search will yield 14 results. Once you click on the thumbnail, it reveals the image attributes or metadata associated with the image in question that is displayed on the left-hand side of the page. Scrolling all the way down to the notes section reveals that the Outer Lord residence is also situated within the St. Paul's Avenue, Stapleton Heights Historic District. Another capacity that allows the user to explore results by address or BBLs is by right-clicking on the search address or BBL field, which will enable us to locate comprehensive results for that property, providing us with a view of images taken of that property at distinct times. You can select the option of BBL or address, but for the purpose of this tutorial, we'll be filtering through the address option. Conducting that filter search will allow us to see images of the Outer Lord residence as an individual landmark, but also images taken within the historic district designation. So once again, when you click on the thumbnail of the image, This will provide you with the opportunity to explore photos of other properties designed by a particular architect. In this case, the architect in question is Otto Loeffler. So if you wanted to view other properties designed by the architect Otto Loeffler for comparison, you can right-click and you'll be able to see the other 67 properties designed by the same architect. Now, in order to conduct a new search, you select the archive under collections or click on the LPC logo for new research. Advanced search is a functionality that allows for an in-depth search by inputting multiple search terms. In this instance, we'll be sampling a search of historic residential buildings located in Brooklyn that are designed in the Queen Anne style. So how we build this search is done in a particular manner. In the search box, we go to the drop-down arrow and click on Advanced Search. On the third line of the search boxes, we'll go to all fields, find this exact wording. In the drop-down menu, we then select borough and then begin to type in the term Brooklyn. As this field was located on our original data sets, Brooklyn begins to auto-populate as you are typing in the search box. Then you select a plus symbol to add an additional filter category. So to build upon that search, you select Use Original, find this exact wording, and type in the term residential. Once that is entered, you can select the plus symbol again to add an additional filter category. And in this case, the additional filter category will be the selection of primary style, find this exact wording, and typing in the search term of Queen Anne. Once you've entered all of your search terms, you can then hit the search button. And then this search will yield 243 image results, or 5 pages of results. Now, for those of you who prefer to display all the results on one page, you can then select the wheel or the cog to the left of the search box so that you can display a maximum of 250 thumbnails on one page. Numerical search results will be shown on the top of the page, and on the left-hand side, those numerical results will also show the names of specific landmarks. In the spirit of information sharing and transparency, the photos in the LPC Designation photo collection are available free of charge and are also downloadable. This is how to use this function. First, you locate a photo that you'd like to share or save for future use. Now, there are 2 ways to do this. The first way is to select the share button on the toolbar. The image can be shared to various social media platforms. Alternatively, you can also copy and paste the URL to the image link or open it in a separate browser window. The second way, if you prefer to save a copy of the image, is to select the export button at the top right-hand side. You have multiple options on the size and resolution of the image you'd like to download, ranging from thumbnail to an extra large size. Once you make a size selection, the image will export as a zip file that will pop up on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. That zip file includes the copy of the image and a text file with the image's associated data. So again, as a reminder, all photos can be downloaded from the archive at no cost. Any reproduction of photos from LPC's archive must credit the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission as the image source. And with that, I'll pass it over to Tim.
Thanks, Wendy. So that concludes, again, the very brief tutorial we've created. And so now we'd like to open up the chat to the attendees with any questions on how to utilize the collection. We do have just a couple concluding slides after that. But right now we have a little bit of time to entertain your questions. And I see we already have one. And why don't I pose this to Wendy? Wendy, Dorothy is asking, can we search by architects? Wendy, you're muted.
Yes, I just realized. So yes, we can search by architect. How we can do that is actually using that advanced search function that I mentioned to you, and basically entering the exact phrasing, name of the architect. So on that third line of all fields, under find this exact wording, you can enter the name of the architect in question and then conduct a search from there.
So like to piggyback on what you're saying, Wendy, so our example of Otto Loeffler,
Mhm.
by typing in Otto, I can see that it's already pre-populating based on the data that's in the archive. I can click on Otto's name and hit search. And then again, those search results where Otto is the primary architect or builder will show up in the collection. That said, I'm assuming based on the question, you would already know the architect you're specifically looking for. And again, to piggyback on the example that Wendy shared, using the exact word fields is the best way to achieve the most comprehensive results. Because if you were used, the other search fields like any of these words or all these words, and you entered in, Daniel Burnham, well, you will also capture any architect that's also named Daniel in your search. So by searching Daniel Burnham in exact wording, you will only capture the Daniel Burnham associated properties. Now, that said, because our data is so robust, as Dan mentioned, you can see that when we do have data related to architects, we could potentially have the primary architect or builder or any of two subsequent architects that may have contributed alterations to that property. So again, just something to consider. Thank you, Wendy. And thank you, Dorothy. Another question. Again, I think this is a good question for Wendy. What buildings have not been digitized yet?
So in terms of the workflow of the project that we've worked on, what essentially we prioritized was dealing with the born digital images as well as digitized images in our collection. And we are currently still in the process of arranging and renaming many of our historic district properties that are born digital imagery. So at that point, once we've completed processing those born digital images, we are anticipating moving forward with digitization, and that will mostly consist of individual landmarks that are basically found in our files that kind of range from properties, I would say, mostly in the 1980s and 1990s.
Uh, Thank you, Wendy. And I would also add to that, as Wendy mentioned earlier, we are updating the archive with new images on a weekly basis, pretty much at this point. So we are moving through the collection fairly quickly, but as you can imagine, over 55 years of images, there's quite a number. So if you are looking for something that you can't find, you can always just notify us through the photo archive at lpc.nyc.gov email address. And if we need to retrieve the hard copies for you through a records access request, we'll certainly help you do that. Depending on where that digitization is in the process. If it's about to be digitized and you can wait a few weeks, we may be able to let you know, oh, if you wait a few weeks, it should be online. But if not, we will certainly work with you to get that information to you as quickly as possible. The next question is for, I think, either Dan or Wendy. Jim is also asking, do you look up individual buildings as 326 Spring Street or Spring Street, comma 326? I think this could be done several ways, Jim, but I don't know. Based on our, again, on your level of comfort and sort of how you want to navigate the site, you could probably, I would say the best approach would be 326 Spring Street. But I don't know, Wendy or Dan, do you have any insights on that?
I would say that our typical naming convention is to always, have the number first in the address field. But as you know, it can be tricky, especially if you have an AKA address, if it's a corner building. And this actually kind of gets to Jeff Jacobson's question about researching by block and lot. Sometimes, if you can't find the building by address, it is really helpful to try searching by block and lot, or you can search by building identification number. And both of those can be pretty easily found through other city resources like Zola or the city's digital tax map.
Great point, Dan. I was just going to point out a clarification too about the using the BBL, which I think could be a really useful tool if the address isn't working out. So the interior, this is a great example. As you may notice, or if you have familiarity with our designations, an interior designation and an individual designation may reside on the same property, but they could be designated at different times. And therefore, the addresses could be framed differently in the legal documents. And so that may cause some confusion. But if you want to, again, capture as many images or all the images that are in the archive, the Bronx Post Office is an example on how to do that. So I've just quickly entered in the interior of the Bronx General Post Office. I click on an image. I scroll down, you notice the exterior was designated separately. It's this separate 0837. The address is because it's a corner property, it's also giving an AKA. Maybe not the best way to search for this property or for additional images. So I'm going to rely on the BBL. And if I go ahead and search the BBL, and you'll notice here, as Dan was mentioning, if you look up in Zola or in other city repositories, here we're using not only the block and the lot number, but also the borough number is in front. But I search BBL, and because the BBL is shared by the building in total, I'm capturing not only the exterior designation photos, but also those interior designation photos. If you look up here in the top right-hand side, this is sort of the text that's associated with the search function, where basically it's BBL equals, the BBL number. You could also enter this either here. I would argue that if you're going to use such a long string of numbers, the advanced search is probably your best approach. Again, using that find exact wording feature to make sure that you're not capturing other blocks and lots with some of those number ranges within it. So Jeff, I hope that answers your question. If not, please follow up and let us know. Next is a question from Brian. Brian is asking a general question, and he'd like to confirm we can use these photos in teaching and even publication as long as we attribute them to LPC. In my case, it would be academic non-commercial publications. Thanks. I think the quick answer to that is yes. Again, this is a public resource. This is a public collection. As Wendy mentioned a couple times, as long as the photos are attributed to the Landmarks Preservation Commission, the photos are available for public use. And then Brian also has another question. In addition, can we use with the attribution to LPC those wonderful historic district maps? That's a great question. Dan, do you have any experience in if the historic district maps have been used? They are, again, they are public documents. I can imagine there isn't any issue with that. But
Yeah,
maybe you can speak to
we've
that.
had requests come in to use them in publications from time to time, and I think typically with attribution, there isn't an issue.
All right. Thanks, Dan. We have one last question here, and we're getting close to the end time. But again, we have a few more minutes if anybody else has questions. Jeff is asking again, I want to look up information about the Poly Prep School on Prospect Park West in Brooklyn. Do I go by block and lot? That's a one. Well, one thing is we need to confirm that it's actually in here. Dan, maybe off screen, could you look up the LP number for that property to see if I can search for it?
That's in the Prospect Park Historic District, correct?
I believe so.
Because that one has not been uploaded yet. That is one
It
that
hasn't been
I think
uploaded.
we're currently working on that designation right now. Is that right, Wendy?
Yes, that's correct. That's forthcoming.
All right, sorry, Jeff, we couldn't provide a live demonstration on searching for the property you're looking for. But if there's a, if there is a particular, if you could provide us the particular address or block and lot for that, if it is a pressing issue, we may be able to at least make accessible to you the hard copies. You would have to digitize them if they haven't been digitized, but we're happy to work with you if you need that information right away. All right, I don't see any other open questions. Jeff, I see your hand is raised again. I don't know if you have another question, but if you want to go ahead and just type it in the chat box, please do so. If not, in the meantime, while we're waiting to see if anybody else has any other questions, I'm going to share some links with you to wrap things up. And that would be here. Just some important links to remember that we've gone over this evening. One is if you're looking to bookmark sort of the permanent location of the photo collection, please use the first URL, which is the NYC landmarks at lunaimaging.com. There will always be a link, or presumably always be a link through the LPC website under the Discover page. So if you want to also just use that as your go-to for the photo archive, that is also the place where you're likely going to see information on updates or any additional events that we may provide the public on navigating through the materials in the future. So you may want to bookmark that page as well. Dan and Wendy did mention the Discover New York City Landmarks map website. It's a fantastic tool. It's a tool that we know many members of the public appreciate and rely on. We certainly rely on it internally as sort of a clearinghouse of most of the information related to our landmark designations here in New York City. And that URL is located there at 3rd. And then finally, we would love to hear from you. As Wendy mentioned, this is a work in progress. We are going to continue to build and grow the archive to make it really useful, hopefully, and a really great public tool. So If there aren't any other questions, on behalf of Chair Carroll and the LPC, we really wanted to thank you all for participating tonight. We are very excited to share this new tool with the public, and we'll hope you'll visit the LPC website or reach out to us if you need any other assistance. So with that, have a wonderful evening, and please let us know how it works. If you like it, if there's things we can improve, we're all ears. We would love to hear from you. So with that, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Wendy. And everyone enjoy your evening. Good night.